Aloha and welcome. This is Dr. Matt Ormond. Welcome to this unbreakable energy for high achievers. So it's wonderful to have you here. For those of you that will see this later on, aloha. I salute your future self. So this is the group of unbreakable energy for high achievers. So I wanted to just introduce myself. I know most of you know me. In fact, most of you said yes to personal invitations from me. So I want to thank you for that. And I do want to ground in a couple of things. So I'm going to go back and forth. I do have some things I want to read, just some thoughts that I put together. But I stepped out of full-time clinical practice. And I love my practice. I love doing what I do as a chiropractor. And yet, the more and more, the deeper and deeper I got into my profession, the direction the profession was heading was not aligned with my values. And so I was feeling some strain, or what we would call misalignment, directional misalignment. And so there was a strain there. I did not realize this, but it was creating leakage. And so as I've stepped away from full-time practice, and it wasn't for lack of love at all, it was I see bigger problems. I saw other things that I wanted to solve and choose to solve other than back pain, neck pain, and all the other pain that come to my clinic. I've been privileged for the last 20 years to become an expert in pain. In fact, I've learned to listen to pain. It might be new for some of you. Over the past 20 years, I've become very, very philosophic about pain. That pain is a mentor, pain is a teacher. When we pause and listen to pain, it has something to show us. Either there's a rock in the shoe, and that's what pain will show us, or it'll show us some sort of lifestyle factor that's just not congruent with what we're doing. So pain is there as an expression. This intelligent nervous system gives us feedback. And so pain is one of the ways in which that feedback comes in. And so here's where my trajectory really shifted and changed forever is, sorry, Father, I cannot talk right now. My trajectory forever changed when I found that I could be expert in relieving pain, but real soon, whether it was 3 months, 6 months, 12 months later, that patient would come back in my clinic with the same amount of pain. And what I found, I wasn't really solving the issue. We weren't really creating healing. We were causing pain relief, but not causing healing. And so what I want to speak into today and what we want to get into, what I hope to get into in this group is speaking into not only just pain, but specifically on this topic of energy. Dr. Peter Attia, a respected medical doctor in the space of longevity, he wrote the book Outlived. He has a tremendous newsletter and he's been on tons and tons of podcasts. But he says it so succinctly. He says that the secret to longevity, or the key to longevity, is the management of energy. And so what I found, this problem of solving that I want to transition into, or I've transitioned into, is that of burnout. I see people leaking energy all over the place. I've experienced burnout myself. I didn't realize that I was leaking energy. And so the secret to longevity is management of energy. And when we're leaking energy, that becomes a huge source of stress for the nervous system. So your body is an intelligent system. These systems work together, and in working together, we call it homeostasis, or balance. So when we are in a state of fatigue, it's not that your physiology is breaking down. It's not the body is breaking down. It's trying to manage your own misalignment. So it's trying to intelligently manage what you are misaligned in. And so I want to ground in that, and we're going to explore today where your leakage is at. And so we are leaking energy, all of us, to some degree. And I've become expert at finding those leakages. And spoiler alert, the funny thing is I can see it in others really quickly. I can identify in patients very, very quickly and succinctly, and yet not super quick about seeing it in myself. So I too am learning to listen and learning to follow the cues, follow the clues. So most people who come to me on this topic, it's not they're lazy. In fact, they're anything but lazy. They're driven. They're type A lot of them are. they're not lazy or undisciplined, that they just have holes in their bucket. And so they're not keeping energy in. And it creates a state of exhaustion. So they're exhausted. So over the past 20 years, as I've worked in my private clinic, I have learned to see patterns. And so today I hope to help you name an area, an aspect where you are leaking energy. And really almost half the battle is knowing the name, of knowing like, oh, this is where my bucket has a hole in it. And so I want to create an analogy real quick is we look at children. And so, children heal very, very quickly. For the most part, they get a broken bone, they'll get a cast, all the things, and within 3 weeks, that bone is healed, and there's very little, like they get a cast off, and they're right back to what they're doing. And you and I, at this stage in our lives, middle age, will get the same break. And instead of 3 weeks, it takes 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And then there's rehab and therapy, and it is just, we are slower in healing. And there's lots of reasons why, but a primary reason is it's all about energy, voltage. The brain and the nervous system generate a ton of electricity. The heart generates even more electricity, and that electricity, that voltage is held in the fascia. And the fascia is this connective tissue that wraps us from head to toe, inside and out. The fascia is the webbing that holds us together. So the fascia holds the voltage, and there's an intelligence in there. And I won't bore you about the details of that unless you want to have a side conversation about it, because it's been the most fascinating study of my life is to understand fascia. When we use the word mind, we're actually speaking to the fascial system, not the brain itself. The brain is an organ. The fascial system is that the intelligence is organized. A lot of memory, a lot of things are stored in the fascia, by the way. And so as we get older, we carry way more stress. We have a lot more leakage in our buckets. So these children who heal very fast, they don't have as much leakage, and so their bodies are able to respond very, very quickly to an injury, to an illness, to a stressful situation. And our bodies no longer do that unless we're really mindful and prudent in how we manicure and procure our energy. So energy isn't just calories. It's not just sleep. It's what is left over after the body is intelligently correcting the misalignments. So there are 4 areas, and I speak of in this in this group. You see the outside of a wheel, and so I do speak of 7 spokes in this wheel, and I'll share more about that in a minute. But we'll speak directly to 4 areas where you are leaking energy. And so if you're following along with this, first of all, thank you, and get out a pen and paper. And I'm going to name 4 areas. So the first area is going to be physiologically. So that'd be areas where we're losing energy. It could be poor sleep. It could be blood sugar mishandling. And there's all sorts of ways that we are in a dysregulation with blood sugar. One of the ways you'll tell is that your energy will go up and down throughout the day. Cravings are a sign that blood sugar is not right. Inflammation, so that's pain patterns throughout the body, and I mentioned insomnia. There's one more, recovery. So not really focusing on recovery. So physiologically, are you leaking energy in that bucket, in one of those areas? So sleep, blood sugar, recovery, and the last one is inflammation, pain. The next one is mental and emotional. And so we'll separate those out. Mental. So mental fatigue is all about chronic stress, chronic fight or flight, never off. There's always more to do. There's never enough. This is a state that drives us, and it causes a perpetual state of exhaustion. This activates the adrenal glands, or adrenal glands are draining your body's resources. In this instance, most cases, adrenals actually support the system, but when it's prolonged chronic, we are burning both ends. So this is the mental exhaustion. So never off. I know a fair amount of business owners, myself included, we will stay up late into the night thinking about our business, making sure the website is different, or making our offering better, or improving something in the business, and not having an off switch. And so, are you leaking energy on the mental side? Then the emotional side. It has to do with emotional regulation, but really it's suppressing. It's unprocessed grief that sits in motion. It's resentment that shows up. For us men, resentment is a piece for sure, and or guilt. And some of these things are ours. Some of these things are just inherited. We've learned. I have a beautiful patient in Huntington Beach that she had autoimmune diseases, diagnosed autoimmune, and so as I'm working through her body and helping, and it's pain, it's all over in the autoimmune states, typically a lot of inflammation. I found the emotion of grief in the body. I found the emotion of guilt in her body. And so, I asked her, and we were going to talk about it, because guilt affects the fight or flight reflex. And when fight or flight is triggered, now the body goes into a state of hyperactivity. And so adrenaline kicks in to support that. And in a hyperactivity state or hyperactive state, it's burning through more resources. It needs more energy. And so whatever it's not getting in the diet, it's going to take from other tissues. So as it starts to steal or nutrients from other tissues, this is where we get into states of inflammation. And so she was certainly in a state of depletion and inflammation. So I found the emotion guilt, another G word, guilt. And she laughed and said, Dr. Ormond, my background, I have a Jewish heritage. Of course, we've been taught to be guilty our whole lives. I grew up in a Christian home, and guilt is a part that's part of almost like a religious culture. And so she had learned through generations of masters of guilt, of how to navigate life using guilt, and taught her some ways. And I've not mastered this for my own body yet, but I've certainly mastered patterns of how to help release guilt or grief or frustration or resentment. We look at what's not serving us. So are you leaking in the emotional center? For us men, it's oftentimes emotion unexpressed or repressed emotion. For the most part, us men, many times we don't even know the name of what it is that we feel. We know we're irritated or annoyed, but what I found is so important to give it a name. And it's like a rock in the shoe. If we can identify the rock in the shoe, shake that rock out, by the time we put that foot back in the shoe, we recognize it's gone, and the remembrance of that rock is gone. And so same it is with emotion. If we identify the emotion, oftentimes that's sufficient. The emotion wants to be expressed. And then if it is persistent, it'll be tied to a thought. And that's another thing that we'll talk about, is there's beliefs that you and I carry, there's identities that you and I carry that no longer serve us. And so the emotion oftentimes, just like a rock in the shoe, will point to these old belief patterns that just are no longer in service of us. Might be not safe, might be not enough, might be unworthy. These are thoughts that govern. So the subconscious mind, and this gets us into this next part, but the fourth bucket is identity/direction. So identity is our belief patterns. Identity is who you are, how you show up, and we have old identities. You look at how a family grows together. I'm one of 6 children in my household as a kid, and there are certain identity roles that in the birth order that you're given. And as we become adults and grow up, of course, it's to us to offload those or not. And I found that I was not able to or willing to carry the identity that my siblings and my family had put on me throughout my younger life. And so I was able to offload those, and fortunately my family allowed me to do that. I know some families in their dynamics do not allow you to offload that identity without some major friction. But looking through the identity bucket. And so again, when I speak about identity and direction, it's like out of alignment with your values. It's not listening to the body, or it's performing. That you're out there performing in some version of inauthentic. That is costly. So we have 4 buckets we're going to look at today. It's physiological, it's mental, it's emotional, and then it's identity/directional. And so identify just for a moment, where of those 4 areas, where are you leaking energy? And I'll just give it a moment and pause. Find where you're leaking energy. And so the first key to fixing burnout is identify where the leakage is at. And identifying, it's like half the battle. When you know where it's coming from, the solution then becomes pretty simple. So let's go physical for a second, because physiological is for most of us, we are not sleeping well, we're not eating as we ought to all the time, we do carry inflammation, and we're not paying any attention to recovery. And I'm not calling anybody out here, but recovery is such an important thing. I'll speak to recovery just for a second because it's in service of you, of this group. Professional athletes, they know how to recover. I tell this to my athletes all the time, my younger athletes. The difference between a good and a great athlete is both good and great have talent. Both good and great, they show up to practice and they are coachable. Good and great athletes show up the same way. The differentiation is the great athletes, they know how to recover and they spend the time to do it. Maybe these guys know, but they don't spend time doing it. And so after you work out, they're using the ice, they're using hydration, they're using sleep or rest, they're using stretching or yoga or some form of body work. And you get up into the professional ranks, and now you know who's recovering or not. There are professional athletes today that are competing at the highest level in the world, late into their 30s, some into their 40s. I think Tom Brady is a great example. Love him or hate him, right? I've learned to love him because he's my age, and I aspire to have some of that resiliency that Tom Brady has. But what he describes, Tom Brady, in his book TB12 Method, is he flipped from his first of the career, he spent 75% of his time resistance training and doing like traditional working out, and 25% of that training was recovery. And by the end of his career, it was the exact flip of that. It was 75% of his time was spent recovering, and 25% was actually spent training. And so bringing that recovery mindset into your work, let's say you stand all day. And so the recovery would be simply spending 10 to 15 minutes laying on your back, doing some knee, windshield wiper work, getting your legs up on a chair, resting that lower back, and then do a little bit of breath work. That'd be a simple way to recover. Maybe you're at a desk all day. I suggest you take a regular bath towel, fold it in half, and fold it in half again, then roll it, and stick that towel vertical between your shoulder blades so it opens up your chest and it relaxes those postural muscles. Because those postural muscles get tight. When they get fatigued, they constrict blood supply, and you wake up the next morning, you've not recovered them, so they wake up into being tight. And so now the fatigue is set. So it goes from Monday to Friday, you didn't recover the weekend, so that carries over week in, and week out. So the simple recovery goes a long ways. So that's a gem I hope that it lands for you. But figure out ways that you need recovery. Look at what activity you're doing and see how to best recover. So we'll speak to sleep as well. So sleep is such an important thing. Here's a myth. There's no such thing as making up for lost sleep. It just doesn't really happen, unfortunately. So sleep hygiene is becoming, there's some real traction now, and people talk about sleep hygiene. And so that's minding yourself before bedtime. And so it's setting a routine. If you need 8 hours, 6 hours, or 12 hours of sleep, it's scheduling your time to make sure you get appropriate time. Dark bedroom is important. Limiting, just the 30 minutes or so prior to bedtime, limiting your screen time, limiting how much you're scrolling, how much you're stimulating the pineal gland, really, but how much light is getting in, because your brain has to process that, and it either is cortisol producing, and if there's cortisol there, you're not producing serotonin, and the body needs serotonin to produce melatonin. And so these are simple things. So if you're leaking out of the physiological bucket, these are simple things to tidy up. And then I'll anchor on this little piece, because we all know that exercise is good for us, but many of us have forgotten why. And so here's the why. Exercise does so many things. I get a clearer head when I exercise, for sure. I have more clarity, but exercise brings energy. Inside your muscles, inside our body, but muscles primarily, it has a ton of stored energy. And as you release that energy, get it moving through the body, you can predictably produce energy. So exercise becomes one of these go-to things that you can use on a regular basis and predictably produce energy. So as we identify where the leakage is at, you can put together a strategy of how to correct this leakage. And what I'd love from you, it's 20 minutes into this lecture, so I'll be about 6 more minutes. So what I'd love from you, if you need help, or if you find that, oh yeah, this is my bucket, what do I do? Reach out. That's the purpose of this group. I want to help you. I want to help you avoid burnout or reverse burnout. And I'll speak real quickly to here is what's at stake. Is if we're not mindful, if we are losing energy and we don't know where it is coming from, what happens is our physical health does decline. Our mental and emotional health does indeed decline. Our resiliency, our emotional stability declines. Our familial health declines. That's our connection with family. Our ability to relate, our ability to be patient, to be kind, forgiving, it is diminished when you don't have energy. Our social health, our willingness to engage in communities, we withdraw, we retract. And the familial and social are the top 1 and 2 predictors for longevity. That's why those are so important. Our vocational health diminishes. Vocation is our connection to our purpose, our why we are here, what we are doing. Vocation sometimes connects to work, not always, but vocational health erodes if we're leaking energy. Then our financial health. There's the financial bucket can be a source of tremendous leakage, and even it's not just beliefs around finances. Debt is a primary cause of leakage, but putting strategies around that bucket, knowing how to fill that bucket again, becomes so important. And then finally, the spiritual bucket. So if we're not mindful of where we're leaking energy, it impacts all 7 of these spokes on that wheel of wealth. And so the 4 primary areas: your physical, your mental, your emotional, and then of course your identity and direction. These would be areas that we'll look into. We can expand it into the 3 other areas soon enough, but these would be the primary areas you want to look into to see which one, where am I losing energy. And so final is I'll connect with this is I want to teach you ways to reverse this leakage. And so one of the things we'll do is use blood work. There's a blood work is a very, very universally used, but what I would say, and this is I offer this humbly, is I don't think blood work is being utilized well enough. Oftentimes, when you go to your general practitioner, and I love general practitioners, I don't envy their task. They are the gatekeepers of all the medicine, including they're the gatekeepers for all the insurance world. So they're burdened with a tremendous burden. And so because of that burden, when you go to your general practitioner, for the most part, they will, when you take blood work, they will say, we'll call you if there's a problem. And hopefully yours isn't. Hopefully yours is more proactive than that, but that is very largely, that's what happens. We'll call you if there's a problem. And so over the past 16 years of doing blood work in my office, never once have I seen perfect blood work. Never once have I seen perfect blood work numbers. There's always ways to optimize. Every number means something. And so that's one that I would suggest that you look at is finding your numbers. If you want to do blood work with me, awesome. I'll show you how to do it. We do it outside the insurance model, so there's some things that we can talk about, some details. But if you do blood work with me, I will give you a full report, detailed report of what it is, what every number means, and if there's anything that's out of the healthy range, I'll comment on it, and we'll connect it to some nutritional deficiency. And so that becomes a simple thing. If you need help in any one of these buckets, I'm happy to help because the cost is too great. I see men changing professions, losing families, or choosing another family because they think that's the problem. I see addiction coming in. I see all sorts of coping strategies that are not serving us in the long run, and ultimately costing longevity, costing years of life because we don't know what to look for. So in this community, I'll be sharing these frameworks, and we'll go fast sometimes and we'll go slow, and we'll repeat. I think these frameworks are of great value. In fact, I've mortgaged much of my future on sharing these frameworks and bringing this value into professionals, into business owners, into people who are in the workforce, who are burdened and financially still have an obligation, need to work, and recognize that something's not quite right. They don't have the energy they used to have. They don't enjoy things the way they used to. And I've seen it from a greater perspective that this is the first sign. It's the first sign that energy is clearly leaking. So I've learned to see these patterns. And so with that, I'll ask this final question. If your energy were protected, what would be possible again? If you could find the leakage, seal up that leakage. So if your energy was totally protected, what would be possible again? What would you do? And I'll end with that. Until next time.